Hey, my name is Brent.
And I'm Nicole.
Welcome to Cloudy of the Chance of Meeples, and welcome to our review of Everdell Duo. Two-player version of Everdell, a game that we absolutely love a lot.
Yep.
We got it in 2020. If you follow the channel, you know that. It's our #1 game. We've played it over 200 times, and we love Everdell.
We love Everdell.
We love Everdell.
Yep.
So we are going to break down Everdell Duo. And before we get into this, we will say that we did play test this earlier this year. And so we did the whole campaign, the 15-game campaign in the cooperative mode, which we'll speak on momentarily. But just wanted to say that, take that into consideration as you hear our thoughts and whatnot. But Everdell, yes, is a game that we absolutely love. So let's just dive in. I have quite a bit of notes because I feel that there's quite a bit to talk about in this game. And actually, as I look at the back of the box, it says something about Duo is an expansive and addictive experience with easy setup and swift playtime. And it says something about a robust and exciting cooperative campaign. So it's touting itself as having a lot of content in this small box. And so we're going to break this down. Is there actually a lot of content in this box? And so, you know what? Let's start off with just the thing that captivates the majority of people into the world of Everdell, and that is the artwork.
Yes.
The artwork. This is done by Andrew Bosley, as well as, I hope we say the name right, Engar Adarasa. Apologies if we didn't say your name right. But uses...
So... Engar did the
good news,
the box cover as well.
Yeah, I did the box cover.
Which I have to say, I really like that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you do too.
I do.
Yeah.
And honestly, when I saw the picture online, it looked a little bit like 3D, like animated. But when you see it, when you like have the physical copy, it looks very similar to the artwork of Andrew Bosley.
Yeah, very well done.
And we should say, we don't have like, Andrew Bosley did this and Engar did this. Like, we don't have it broken down. We're just looking at it and assuming that he did the artwork of the box, the good news cards, as well as the game board. Because
you can see the difference.
You can see the difference, and all the cards are Everdell artwork. The tiles have the artwork from kind of the complete collection.
Which, you know what, it's interesting. I think, like, because all the artwork on the cards are the same as the original game, and I don't know if Everdell Duo is getting flack for that or will get flack for that. I just want to say I think it's normal and okay, because if you look at any other game that comes out with a 2-player version, the artwork isn't changing.
Not
right?
Not often, no.
So, like, I think it's fine. I think it's, I mean, we love the Everdell artwork, so it doesn't bother me at all.
No.
What about you?
No, and yeah, to me, it's natural.
Yeah.
Because this is set in the world of Everdell, and so it just makes sense that it's kind of just bringing you back to the original, right?
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, the artwork... It's fantastic, and you know, if you don't have the complete collection or you don't have this expansion, you don't have Spirecrest, you'll see artwork. You'll be like, "Hey, this is new artwork." It may be new to you, but
it's from the expansions.
But it's from the expansions,
is
and some
also
of the,
cool.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and so the artwork's great. Components are fantastic. I would have loved to see hair critters. So like in all the Everdell games, they have, you know, like 6 critters. In this one, there's only 3 tortoises and 3 hares. And so I would have loved to see 6 hair tokens so that we could have played that in the base game Everdell. And this is like a minor thing. Like,
yeah,
I would love to see that.
But I mean, there's so many critters to choose from.
I get it.
Already.
But it would have been cool to see the hares and be like, hey, we're gonna play hare in base game Everdell. But
okay, but here's the question about that though. Maybe we'll get to that later. But like, just to play devil's advocate here, like yes, I see what you're saying, but will someone who buys Everdell Duo necessarily even own regular Everdell?
That's what we're going to talk about
would it
later.
even matter? And would it even make sense to be like, well, why are there 6 of these?
Right.
Right.
Totally makes sense. But there's 6 skunks, right? So someone could take the skunks and go play skunks in Everdell. But minor quibbles.
6 skunks have a purpose in Duo, though.
They do. You're right. But we'll talk about we'll talk about that, whatever. And the Sun and the Moon components are tokens. They're little cardboard standees. I would love to see them being little wooden tokens that you move along the board.
Yeah, upgraded a little bit. But
arts and components,
they're fine.
Good.
Yeah.
But let's dive in. Let's dive into the 2 modes, the competitive mode and the cooperative mode, the campaign. And I should also say we're going to put timestamps in the description of this video. So if you just want to know what the competitive mode, just want to know about cooperative mode, things like that. But competitive mode, what was something that stood out to you in the competitive mode that like you're like, man, I really like this? Like,
I mean, that's a tough question. There's so many things. Like, I like how I'm trying to think back to the first time we played the competitive mode, and like just the way that it felt like home. You know, like it felt like, okay, well, this is like, if you've played Everdell, you'll know how to play Everdell Duo immediately, the competitive mode, right? I liked that there was new cards, like that the cards did different things than we're used to, right?
Yeah.
So you kind of had to learn that, which is actually really fun.
There's a lot of new combos. I wrote down there's 80 unique cards, and I kind of like went through the deck and then took out all the cards that are like, okay, these are either almost carbon copy of original Everdell or just a little sidestep, but kind of same power. And I want to say, I could be wrong, but there's like over half the cards are like a new power or a new something.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like
different...
the destination cards are very different in this one.
Yes. And some of the other cards, like a lot of the other cards are different too. And it's cool because they're not different in a way that like is annoying or is complicated or makes things difficult. They're just like slight changes, right? But the general concept of the game is exactly the same. So like you've got your 5 colors of cards, and you've got, you know, and it's using the Far Shore system, where you kind of have, it's almost like a golden occupy token or whatever, an anchor I guess. But it's not. It's just a regular token. But you don't have to match certain cards to combo them, right? You can just do color with color. Well, I guess building with critter, but like
the same type of card, right? A green production card. If you play a green,
so I think that's more streamlined for people who maybe don't know the game as well or don't know the game at all. Makes it super simple. Yeah. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. To me, I said that the red destination cards work very different. It's not totally the case. If I build a green, or if I build a red destination card, you can go to it. I still get a victory point, right? But they're not classified as open locations or not open locations, right?
Which is fine.
Which is fine. So that's what I mean. They're a little bit different. But there's some like super powerful ones. Be like the Inventor, for example. You put a critter there. You can trade 4 resources for any 4 resources and 4 victory points, or like one resource for any resource and a victory point, up to 4 times.
It's like an upgraded peddler or something.
Yeah, so like they have some really powerful red destination cards.
Yeah,
I felt this to be super tight, and
tight.
I forgot to mention, if you want to see how this is played, how Everdell Duo is played, a link in the description of this video on our playthrough of both competitive and the cooperative. But I felt it super tight because you only have a certain amount of actions per season. Like, you
only have a certain amount of turns per game.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It's tough to get used to if you're used to regular Everdell, where you can just play until your city's full, right? Or
you can't do anything else.
Right. You kind of play until your game is over, like your personal game. But this one, you're depending on those Sun and Moon tokens. So the game ends and you're like, whoa, just hang on. Yeah, I had like 3 more cards that I wanted to play.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I said it was tight, because those Sun and Moon tokens,
very tight, because all of a sudden you realize, I gotta pick and choose my turns super wisely.
Yep.
So in that way, yeah, it's really tight, which is actually, it's fun. I like that.
Yeah, I do too. So pretty much anytime you put a worker out, you move the sun. Anytime you play a card, you move the moon token. And when they get to the end, like if the sun token makes it to the end of the board, nobody can put out a critter.
Yeah.
So you can really, like, you can be mean, because you can also, if you don't put out a critter or play a card, you can just draw a card from the meadow and move either of those tokens.
Yeah.
So you can box your opponent out, be like, oh man, you know what? I saw they picked up this card. They haven't played it yet. I'm going to quickly, grab a card from the meadow, move that moon token to the end. They can't play that card.
It's very competitive. And you can end up not being able to put out all your critters.
Yeah, you can.
Which, I mean, you only have 3, but like, let's say you could have 1 left over at the end and you never even got to place it anywhere.
Yeah, so
and that's the end.
And furthering on that sun and moon, I love this, that they move along that center track, but you can only ever play cards out of the meadow that are adjacent to those tokens. So at the beginning of the game, you can only play from the meadow the left 2 cards. And as each round, and when I say at the beginning of the game, I mean as each season, those tokens will move, and you can again really like have that head game chess match with your opponent. Because you can move the sun token so that they can't play a certain card.
Yeah, I mean, you can always pick up cards from the meadow, but then that's a whole turn.
That's a whole turn, right?
Right, so that's where your decision making has to be really, really well thought out. Like, you have to think. I could see there being AP in this game from certain people. Our games went fairly quickly. I did have some AP, especially in the competitive mode, because for me, like, we'll talk about the campaign, the cooperative one later, but for me, the competitive mode, like, I want to win.
Right. As do I.
And so I'm really thinking about my turns, and I'm looking at what Brent's doing, and so I take a little bit longer with my turns. But that being said, are we up to the time yet?
Up to the time
of the game, like the length?
Well, no, I was going to say it says 30 minutes on the box, and I think that's doable, but I honestly would think it would be more. It's
more like
closer.
45 or
40 minutes.
Yeah, I would say.
It's about 30 to 40 minutes.
I guess
it
depends.
Can be played in 30.
Yeah.
It could be played in 30 if you're like quite snappy and you kind of know what you're doing. But it is kind of that headspace, that head game, depending on what your opponent's doing, whether you're going to pick up a card and move that
because
token.
Your turns, they matter so much. You're just right in regular Everdell, it almost feels like your turns matter, of course, but like you can kind of do more willy-nilly turns if you want, right? It's not like, I don't know, this one just is so tight.
Timing is everything in this. I wrote that down. Timing is everything because of those tokens, but also those events, and we're going to talk about those events. Because in our playthrough, you were like 1 turn ahead of me for getting an event, and then apparently getting 4 events.
Big deal.
And I just got absolutely stomped in that game. But that was embarrassing to say the least. But yeah, those events are tight. The competition for the journey, which is whoever has more cards in their city plus in their hand. Which in this one there's no hand limit.
But it's hard to get cards.
Get those
at the
5.
Same time.
But a bunch of the new powers have, draw a card, discard a card to draw a card. So there are ways to kind of deck dive, but you can't deck dive in a sense for like, oh, I have this, I need this matching critter. You don't need to do that.
Because there's not multiples of cards.
Right, that's the thing. There's 80 unique cards.
I mean, you can deck dive, but it's not really that. It's not a good strategy anymore, right? In this game, it's.
But in the campaign, there's some to that. But we'll speak on that.
We'll talk about that later.
but there are 30 events, and you use like only 6 a game, 5 a game. The fair is 1, and then I think it's 6 altogether. 1 is the fair. So there's A, B, C, D, and E. There's 5 categories of events, and you're choosing 1 from each of the categories, shuffling them all, putting them at the top of the board, and then whenever you gain an event, you gain a resource or a bonus or whatever. And so there are so many events, and so those are timing. You got to watch what your opponents are doing. Your opponent is doing. If you're gonna go for certain events, because again, every event is 5. Our playthrough, you got 4 out of the 6. No, you got like 5 out of the 7. Sorry.
I don't
And
remember
so
how many
I'm pretty sure that. So that can win you or lose you the game, right?
Totally.
Going for those events.
Yeah, and yeah.
So there's immense variety in the events, and there's immense variety in the river tiles. There's like 20 river tiles each season. You use 2 different ones.
There's some really good ones in there.
They're
too.
so powerful. It's
Yeah.
like trade 1 resource for any 3 resources, and it's
Yeah.
like holy smokes! Like this is an amazing
Or it's like
river tile.
2 twigs and 2 berries or something like that.
Yeah, there's a
3
whole
twigs
bunch
and a berry
or reactivating 2 different farms. So
Yeah.
there's a way resources are tight, but some of these.
You can get them though.
But some of these like locations
really well balanced, I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
Some of these locations and river tiles can gain you like 4 or 5 resources. So they are tight.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are ways to get them.
There are ways.
But
it's more for me. It's more the card play that's tricky. Like, yeah, it's a little more tight in the card play. Like the resources, I always find I have some left over at the end of the game. At this game,
except in the campaign, which we'll speak on.
that's totally different though.
Yeah.
The campaign is so different.
Yeah.
But just to end this one off, I just want to say, like, and I guess this goes for the campaign too, but specifically this mode is my personal favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy the campaign too. We'll get into that later, but the competitive mode of Everdell Duo is amazing. I really like it because it's quick. You get that Everdell experience.
Yep.
Especially if you play a lot of 2-player games.
Yep.
Obviously, if you're playing with more people, that doesn't make any sense. But because Brent and I play Everdell alone, like just the 2 of us, quite often, I can see this coming out a lot more because the setup is fairly quick.
Yeah.
And the gameplay itself, like we could play 2 rounds of this in the time that we could play
One Everdell.
right? Not saying that we'll do that, but like just with the busyness of life, I think that Everdell Duo is a great option for couples, or whoever your person is. I think it's great because you can just set it up really quick. Even the teardown is a lot quicker. There's just less stuff. And I mean, that's not taking away from, like, I love Everdell, of course.
You're saying less stuff as in, like, on the table? Less
yeah,
stuff?
like, if you have a small table,
Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Because you don't need a lot of space for this game.
No.
So I like that.
Yeah.
I like that it's a little more, like, I feel like people will buy this, and you should buy this, because of the size even. Just that, right? You could even travel with this game.
Yep.
Like, we never travel with Everdell.
No.
Because it's just, like, it's insane, right?
Yep.
But I can see us bringing this places.
Yeah.
So
we're going to move on for the competitive. I'm going to speak a little bit on the challenges. We have not played the challenges. We have not played the solo mode. Neither Nicole nor myself are solo gamers, per se. But I do want to talk about the challenges. There are 10 different challenges. And you can play these challenges cooperatively or by single player in the solo mode. But I really like the challenges because I could see even pulling these into Everdell in general. But like, there's a challenge: no green cards. There's a challenge to have like less than 10 cards in your city. What else is it? Welcoming 5. Occupy tokens in your city or in your supply. So there's different challenges that you could just play repeatedly. And then they have easy mode and hard mode and normal mode. So 3 different levels of all 10 of these challenges.
depending where you're at. Right?
And so there is a lot of that in the challenge mode as well. And so we're going to talk now, switch gears to the campaign book. We're not going to spoil specific things in this campaign book. We'll talk a little bit about some of the chapters to a degree. But like I said at the top of the video, we have gone through the campaign when we were playtesting. A couple things changed since then that won't affect our review in that sense, just that we see how they changed, and obviously for the better. I'm not necessarily one for like stories in games and things like that. Like, I like the lore of Everdell, but we don't do long campaign games by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
But I thought this story was kind of cool. So to set it up, one player is the tortoise, one player is the hare, tortoise, hare. And it sets off that you're both mayors of, I guess, different communities. And there's like this beat reporter, the skunk from this different newspaper, The Root, who's just like causing havoc and causing trouble and whatnot. And you, as your team, must work together to kind of like tell the news correctly through the Gazette, which again, the Gazette is part of Everdell. And so they kind of brought in this new newspaper, per se, this new media outlet.
Yeah.
Lily Thorne, Miss Lily Thorne, the skunk, and she's just, whatever, sharing bad news or wrong news. And it was just really cool. Each game in the campaign has a little story from what the one news article is saying compared to the other news article, and what they're saying reflects what the challenges you will encounter, right? And so I thought that was really cool. I'm just going to set up a little bit. So chapter 1, if you want to see us play it, link in the bottom of this video. But it's called Learning to Work Together. And that's like the perfect name for this chapter.
It is.
And the perfect name to start off the campaign. Because you really have to change your mind or change your way of playing Everdell to play this. And this is where you come in, where... You said earlier that you love to win Everdell, as do I. And so...
Us coming together for this campaign was exactly that.
Yeah.
We had to learn how to work together because Brent thinks it's best to do this strategy, and I think it's best to do that one. And we had to come to a decision together, right? For each card that we played or each move that we made. We had to... Yeah, we had to work together, which is tough, especially when you know the ins and outs of Everdell. If you play it a lot, you have kind of your own idea of what you want to do.
And which cards you want to play.
And that's exactly, and that's why, this sounds horrible, but that's part of the reason why I don't like the campaign as much as I like the competitive mode, because I just like to do my own thing. But working together, and the campaign was fun, but yeah, you have to be able to... I don't like co-op games, usually, in general.
Right. And at the same time, I typically don't as well. The majority of campaign
are
cooperative games...
You've got... I mean, Brent's a little bit, bossy. Can be.
Guilty.
Because he thinks he knows the best way to win, right? And sometimes he does. But, yeah.
I'm just going to say, I love it how, in different, again, don't want to spoil the campaign, but in different chapters, you have to score certain things. You have to score, a benchmark. But at the same time, you have to, the hare has to play a certain card before this time, and the tortoise has to play a card before this time.
It's all very thematic, too, right?
It is. It is very thematic. And, you sometimes have to heal a character or find a character or capture a character. And depending on how you do, how one chapter ends, how the next chapter will begin. And it's got this, cool little thematic story.
And it's not easy. The campaign is not easy. It's
I wouldn't.
Challenging.
It is challenging. Under normal, we didn't even do hard.
We didn't even do hard.
And the hard is... it will be, if you're experienced Everdell players like ourselves,
I thought we knew Everdell.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, this is going to be easy breezy, and it wasn't.
No.
It's a good challenging, right? It was okay, yeah, now we gotta do this.
Yeah, well, and it's cool because these skunks, this Lily Thorne, she has helpers that block different locations or block events, and you can't gain those events if those skunks are there. So you have to really, really communicate and really plan out. And when you talk about cards in your hand, you'll be like, hey, you can't say, hey, I have the ranger in my hand, so I will go do this. You
have to kind of, you can say, oh, I have a 10
traveler critter in my hand. I really want to play this. And so you're holding your cards and you're you really have to communicate, and it has that sharing. Some of them are open sharing, which you can just give cards or resources. to this central tile, and then your
But the sharing
co-op.
can be limited too.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then,
Sorry,
right?
what I was saying is you can share, and then on the next player's turn they get those resources. But sometimes you can't share it all, or you
Yeah.
can only share when the sun and the moon token are in the middle of the
Yeah.
board. And so there's some really tricky puzzles that you have to work through.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, like we talked about the competitive mode being super tight. This one is even tighter.
I remember playing some of them and we're like, hey, we have to get 3 events. We only have 3 workers to put out the next season.
And you have to sit there and be like, hey, all the scenarios,
Yeah.
which one is actually going to get us what we need, right?
Yeah. And
So-
you really have to work together. I like it that, there's just different things. Sometimes you have to remove stuff before you can play cards, or you can only play certain cards. You start with a hand of cards or certain cards in the meadow, and you have to play them. You can't win the scenario unless you win them. And so it's just absolutely fantastic. It's such a fun campaign.
It's good. It was really well planned out.
Yeah, and it's got the little flavor text as the story, so you're going to be going on this journey. 15 games. There's 10 campaign sheets in this. So legitimately, you can do this campaign with what's in this box 10 times.
Yeah.
Which is a ton of replayability.
Oh, so much. Yeah.
Speaking on, backtracking a little bit, we said that there's some, legit challenging moments in this.
Oh, yeah.
I love it how you get those little good news cards, which we talked about the artwork earlier. These good news cards and a
Very
pocket watch. So the
helpful.
pocket watch kind of you can move the sun or the moon token back so that you gain another action. Or those good news cards will be either player gets 2 pebbles, or discard the good news card for each player to gain 1 resource. So there are some helpers along the way. And if you don't use them in normal mode, you can take them with you. Whereas in the hard mode, you can only have 1 per game. And there's, I don't know how many, 20, 25?
I gotta
and
try the hard mode yet.
Oh,
Just to see how we do.
I'm excited to try the hard mode. But I'm just going through all my notes. I have a lot of notes on this because there's just a bunch of stuff in this campaign that we really, really did enjoy, even though you're not a fan of cooperative modes as much, and neither am I. But
somehow this is just, I don't know. If this wasn't Everdell, I probably wouldn't have even bothered with it. But because I know Everdell and how much I enjoy it, I still enjoy the cooperative version.
Yeah.
But I would say, for the most part, for myself, I'm going to be wanting to play the competitive mode more often.
Yep.
In general, in the future.
Mm-hmm. But let's wrap all this up. I know we talked a lot about both the campaign and the cooperative, and then hopefully we can answer the question many are going to ask. I already own base game Everdell. I play it predominantly at 2 players. What does this offer? What does Duo offer? And why should I add this to my collection?
Yep.
Okay, so obviously can't spend your money, but base game Everdell is fantastic at 2 players. We've never felt
it's amazing.
We love Everdell. Majority of our plays have been at the 2 players, with a bunch at the 3 player, but not often do we play 4. 5, 6, that's never going to happen. Anyways, but if you play strictly just 2-player games and you don't have either, I think Duo is the one that will speak to you. If you are like ourselves, that it's hey, we love 2-player, but we do love all the expansions and all the, the added content. Base game is just still out of the park. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Mm-hmm. We have room in our collection for both of these, even though we have limited space of games that we can keep.
Oh yeah.
This is absolutely there's so much content in the box. I said at the top of the video, it says it has robust content.
You just get so much more yeah.
I feel there's, in this small box, there's more replayability and content than base game Everdell.
I think so.
Because there are 30 events versus only 20 in the base game,
all those river
and the
tiles.
forest locations in base game Everdell, there's like a dozen, and this one there's 20, right?
Yeah.
And so there are so many, there's just so much replayability with 80 unique cards. There's so many combos that we haven't figured out yet that I'm really excited to dive into. And so,
and especially with the campaign too, like there's just like you add that onto it, it's like wow,
right? Yeah,
you could play so many games of this.
Yep.
And if you're a big Everdell fan and that's why you're watching this video, I would encourage you to get Duo even if you have the base game, because it's just something different. Like it's not the same. It's not like they moved base game Everdell into a smaller box and they're just like, no, like this is a different game. And so if you love Everdell, it's worth getting.
Absolutely. And say you're like, you know what? Is it worth getting because I don't want to do the campaign? I just want to play competitively. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you're on the flip side, you're like, hey, you know what? I already have base game Everdell and I love that one. Can I get this just for the campaign?
Yep.
I say absolutely, because you can play it on normal mode and then hard mode, and you're going to be playing this minimum 30 times.
Yep.
On just doing the campaign twice, and then they have 10 sheets, so you can do that. You could be playing, cooperatively, not a campaign, cooperatively building one city. We didn't even talk about that. You can play it just without the campaign, cooperatively, and then doing those challenges that I spoke on.
Yep.
So you can do it that. Like there is legit like so much content in this small little box. And I should say it is small. It's the same size as Azul, not as the same depth. Like it's not as thick as Azul. But that would be about the same.
So it's not like a
size
tiny box, but it's
not a tiny box,
compared
but it's
to
not
Everdell.
like a Ticket to Ride size box. So wrapping that, what would you give this one?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be a 95% Chance of Meeples. The only reason it's not 100 is because I don't enjoy the campaign as much. So I was kind of giving my rating on both the campaign and the competitive mode. So yeah, if you put those two together, like for me, it's a 95.
Yeah, I'm at 100.
Yep.
I like, to me, this is on par as basing Everdell, all the expansions. Like this is amazing, and even though we're not as much cooperative fans and stuff like that, I still had a lot of fun with the campaign. I love the different challenges of being like, okay, we have to play this card before this. We have to end the game with these cards in our city. We have to end with 25 victory points out, like coins outside or whatever the number is. Like I love that challenge, and so. And maybe I'm a little bossy in that regard, but I love that. The competitive mode is just absolutely fantastic. It's so tight. Production, absolutely amazing. So, yeah, I'm at 195. This Everdell Duo is absolutely fantastic. So, we highly recommend picking it up because it truly is that good. So, there you have it. Our thoughts on Everdell Duo. My name is Brent.
I'm Nicole.
Till next time, grab your umbrella. The forecast is cloudy with a chance of meeples.